Okay, so today is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. It's the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update, and I want to begin with the stock price. There's a lot of money at stake here, right? Ultimately, that's riding on the stock price. Certainly not just for me, but for you and for others, right? It's not that I treat the stock price in a frivolous way. It's just that I understand that ultimately, the stock price is going to gyrate and do what it's going to do. What we have control over, right? What Stronghold Digital Mining has control over as a business is its operational performance, right? And executing on the incredible plans that we have and just seeing to it that as a business, we do what we can do to make our numbers work. Ultimately, if we make our numbers work, right, the numbers that we have control over, I'm convinced that the stock price will eventually take care of itself. Okay, with all of that said, I want to speak a bit more in depth about what our potential break-even hash price is. Okay, so let's pull up the slide, please. Okay, so I calculated that for the first 6 months of year 2023, the year we're in right now, okay, our so-called foggy expenses, right? Fuel, operations and maintenance, general and administrative, and then finally interest expense. Those four categories, when you average it all out over the first 2 quarters of this year, we're at $302,691 a day. Okay, and that's in, again, fuel, operations, maintenance, general, administrative, and interest expense. Why am I choosing to focus on foggy? Well, that's because those are the major, overwhelmingly major categories of expenses that really reflect money leaving our bank account. Okay, so $302,691 per day. Now, we're kind of future pacing this, right? And looking ahead to the next week, 2 weeks or so, where we're basically going to be at 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining, in terms of our hash rate. Like our internal hash rate will reach 4 exahash. So as a result of that, and based on the Q1 2023 investor presentation that stipulated that we would be consuming about, 130 megawatts of electricity to be at 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity, that suggests that there's about 35 megawatts left over, which we would essentially be, or at least have the potential to be, sending to the grid. Okay, so when we multiply, and I averaged this out right from the beginning of this quarter, Q3 2023, till today, grid prices have been averaging around $28, and that's for both PJM Penelec, added to PJM PP&L, divided by 2, get 28. If we multiply that by 35 megawatts, right, basically we're producing about $23,520 per day, okay, from grid sales. So let's go ahead and subtract that then from our roughly $302,000 starting sum. That leaves us with $279,171, and that essentially needs to be covered then by our Bitcoin mining operations. So if we divide the roughly 279,000 by 4 million, which would basically be the number of terahashes that we have, if we bear in mind we're forecasted to reach 4 exahash in a couple of weeks here. So let's say we're there right now, just for the sake of the math. When you do that math, we basically arrive at a hash price of 0.069, or essentially 6.9 cents would be the hash price required for us to basically be at a break-even point. Okay, back to me now, please. I know math can get a little bit fuzzy and there's a lot of variables, but what I'm trying to point out here is that we can't simply just take a number such as the price of Bitcoin, right, and then say, well, if Bitcoin is at, say, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, it's not quite that simple because of the network hash rate, and also because, bear in mind, we are a, as an entity, right, as a company, Stronghold Digital Mining has the ability to sell energy to the grid, right? We produce electricity at our waste coal reclamation facilities, right? Out in Western Pennsylvania, that would be Scrubgrass. Here in Eastern Pennsylvania, it would be Panther Creek. So when we choose to sell electricity to the grid, right, that generates some revenue, and then that reduces, right, the amount of money that essentially we have to cover if we're looking at this on a day-to-day basis. So in the example we just shared, it was about $279,000 that was left after we subtracted the small amount that we might be generating from the grid. And then when we do the math saying, hey, we've got 4 exahash, that's about 4 million terahashes, hey, what would the hash price need to be for us to be breaking even? It's 6.9 cents. So I find that to be a useful number to look at. I'll take a quick peek right now. I think we were under that by a little bit today. I'm checking our dashboard. Okay, so right now we're at 0.062. So we're just a little bit shy as of this moment. This isn't an average or anything like that. Just as of this moment right now, we're just a little bit shy of that break-even point. And by the way, Bitcoin happens to be trading at $27,850 a coin. So if we're practically almost break-even, right, at 27,850 with a network hash rate of 411, more or less, you see what I'm trying to get at? That like we can't get too hung up on, well, Bitcoin has to be at 40,000 or 50,000 or 800,000 or 10 million, for us to break even. No, it really, really also depends on the network hash rate. And it also depends what we're choosing to do with that roughly now 35 megawatts of electrical production capacity, right? The ability to produce, 35 megawatts more than what would be consumed by our data centers. Because bear in mind, if we're basically guiding towards 130 megawatts of electrical usage based on a 4 exahash hash rate, internal hash rate, our power plants, generally speaking, can produce up to 165 megawatts of electricity. So as a result of that, you're going to have a little bit left over to sell to the grid if we choose to do so. So, again, that's another variable that's very unique to us. So based on these numbers, I'm very comfortable saying, okay, hey, if we're at a roughly 6.9 cent, hash price, again, based on, wherever grid pricing might be because of that little extra, right? Hey, that's really, really good for us. If you wanted to say, hey, you know what, forget about the grid, forget about all of that. Let's just focus 1,000% on Bitcoin. What if we had to sustain ourselves like exclusively through Bitcoin? Then I do believe the number would be a little bit higher. If I'm not mistaken, why don't we just calculate it like in real time right now, super quickly here. Just so that way we have a working number. Let's just take the 302,691. Let's divide that by 4 million. And yep, okay, we get a hash price of basically 7.5 cents. So pretend all of a sudden we couldn't sell power to the grid anymore. All we are is like a Bitcoin company, right? We have no other options. Okay, fine. So we need then, based on that, we would need the hash price to be about 7.5 to be at a break-even point based on, by the way, and this is also important, based on where we've been in terms of our core costs, right? Fuel, operations and maintenance, general administrative, and interest expense for the first 2 quarters of 2023. Again, that also is a bit of a moving target. Those numbers could be a little bit higher, or they could be actually a bit lower. And what we're seeing is, and I did the math, last year for all of 2022, we were much closer to like almost $400,000 a day in terms of those FOGI expenses. So we've come down quite a bit already, during 2023. And I think there's an argument to be made that we are striving, I think the company's striving very diligently, right, to keep trying to push those costs lower and lower and lower. But again, it's a dynamic market, right? A lot of things sometimes happen, things come up. But I'm comfortable saying, hey, looking at this from a real world perspective, let's just say 6.9 cents, maybe round it up to 7 cents an exahash. That's a really good number for us to be at in terms of breaking even. And as I alluded to a moment ago, Bitcoin's around, 27, almost 28,000. And we're really close to that break even point even right now. So I hope this helps provide some context as to why the price of Bitcoin by itself, right, it's useful. It's exciting. As I said yesterday, hey man, if we see Bitcoin prices like 30,000, 35,000, 40,000, 45,000, yeah, that's all really, really good for the psychology, right, of our market, of our, just right, like it's good. Those are really good headlines. But in terms of sort of the under the hood, well, wait a minute, what do we actually need to compute to figure out if we're actually generating, like a break even point from the perspective of being a Bitcoin miner? The hash price is definitely, absolutely the kind of number we want to focus on. Because otherwise we're not looking at the full picture and we're getting a skewed sense of things if we just look at the price of Bitcoin. Okay, tough day in the market. I get it. Tomorrow's a new day. Let's be positive. Let's be great. And we'll see each other again tomorrow.